Okay, Steve-O, we're live on air by the looks.
Yeah. Hang on, let me make sure my microphone is off when this thing pops up. Yeah, it is.
Oh, you mean your speaker's muted?
Yeah. How you doing, man?
Good. Well, a bit crazy to tell you the truth. Here I am in Auckland in a hotel room again this week, and my wife and I were just turning in for the night last night, and checking the news, and our government announces there's been a new outbreak of COVID. And so as of midday today, they're locking down the city that I'm in. And if you don't live here, you need to exit the city before lunchtime, before all the roadblocks go in. So, been 102 days across the country who have had no COVID out in public. It's only been in quarantine facilities. And then a family of 4 have it, with the youngest being under 5 years of age, and they don't know how these people have caught it in Auckland. So therefore, they
shut the whole world down.
Our government takes drastic measures quickly. That's how we eradicated it last time. So
we do not.
I was due to go on a holiday next week, and all planned to fly to Queenstown and do a road trip and winter holiday, and we had to cancel everything rapidly last night. A bit of a deja vu for going to Barcelona, because it was a case of, could we recover all our out of pocket for Airbnbs and whatnot that we'd booked. So interesting time. As soon as this show finishes today, I'm literally in the car and doing a 2.5-hour drive back to my property.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Well, here we got Scott, Thomas, Danny, Gary, Andrew, Martin, Nick's back, Frank, who's having a laugh over Dataflex.
Yeah.
Mandar. Yeah, the Dataflex, funny. I mean, we were talking about that before the show here, about how I always looked at I looked at Microsoft before I got involved with them, from the outside looking in, as this big, monolithic, tight-run ship. And then when I actually got involved with them, I realized they so much act like a startup. I mean, it's a massive sized startup. Mm-hmm. But even a startup doesn't make as stupid a mistake.
Are you talking about Dataflex?
They could not have done any homework on this at all. I think egos must have got involved, decided they liked the name, we're going to have it. Other people be damned. And now with them, with them taking it off of all of their sites and being told there's a new name potentially in the works, it sounds like they folded up that hand. And it's just fucking embarrassing. I mean, it's embarrassing for Microsoft. It's embarrassing for all of us partners talking to customers about Dataflex. Thank God it hadn't been around long enough for us to have lots of conversations about it, because we just look like idiots.
I see that Mary J. Foley has said this morning she got an update internal from somebody in Microsoft on ZNet Post, saying that they are working on a new name and will be announced in the coming weeks. And like, this all came about, one of the internal dialogues I heard of why Dataflex, of course, was the positioning of CDS inside Teams. But there apparently was a lot of confusion around common data service and common data model. Now,
that might be a reason for another name. That's not a reason for Dataflex, that particular name.
No, but why wouldn't you change common data model? Just change it to common data schema. What it is a schema, which straight away the word schema explains what the common data model is, without you having to pull out a pie chart and whiteboard and draw some diagrams.
I think they kind of screwed themselves a little bit earlier on, because they kept talking about those two things in the same sentence.
Yeah.
And the typical customer doesn't know what either of those were.
Yeah.
Even
3-letter acronyms.
Common data model is something that was a little easier to explain to customers. But then, common data service was a little easier to explain to customers. Common data model, they didn't get or understand or care about.
No.
But every conversation with Microsoft, they were referring to both of those things, and I don't think they helped themselves. They definitely confused the customers, and that's what they said was the reason for a name change, was because customers were confused. Yeah. Well, yeah, because you fucking confused them.
And now the confusion's even higher, right? I mean, if you do a quick Google of Dataflex now, you've got all the vloggers that went out and did the YouTube videos explaining it.
Yeah.
You've got it's funny, the Dataflex owner, the owner, whatever they're called, that the company that's has a trademark, they've
Yep.
put up ads about Dataflex. I noticed in Google ads last night, the first ad was for Dataflex, going back DataMind, that's the company. So I'm thinking, mate, they've cottoned on to make sure it's their brand.
I think
is
it's Data
strong.
Access. Data Access, the name of the company.
Data access, yeah.
Well, what probably happened is you probably went to their site and you're now getting retargeted with their advertising. So that's
Yeah.
probably why it's popping up, because you went to their
Valid.
site once.
Valid.
But
valid.
what a cluster. I mean, I don't understand. They don't seem to, it has never even occurred to me to rename my daughter at this stage.
Yeah.
I mean, it just never did occur. I mean, she's kind of used to that name. We'll let her keep that. But they
Yeah.
don't seem to look at names as having any permanence to them
No.
at all. And I don't know if it's
Office
marketing.
365 case in point.
Yeah, I don't understand. And even in that case, they rename Office 365 to Microsoft 365, which is a name they were already using for something else.
Yeah.
They're already using that. So I mean, now you
Voice
really
of the
confuse
customer,
people.
Forms Pro, voice of the customer.
Yeah, or customer voice.
Sorry, yeah. There you go.
Customer,
Confusion.
yeah, exactly. We can't even keep them straight. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like the name customer voice either. I mean, I think that Forms Pro is much more broad than what customer voice makes me think of. Makes me just think of user CSAT surveys.
Yeah. Which is just crazy, right? A Forms tool is so much more. I was remembering talking to Manuela when she was working at Virgin Atlantic, which interesting. I'm pretty sure it's gone into receivership with COVID, that company. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
You'll probably find Microsoft's not using that name much more in their marketing for successful outcomes. But she was saying the Forms Pro tool was really starting to take off internally because so many clipboard-based tasks that their staff, crew, etc., had to do, it just did it. They could be on an iPad or a tablet type device, bring up that Forms tool, do their bunch of checks or whatever that they had to do, and that was all tracked. It was time stamped with who did it, blah blah blah. As it was just a good flexible tool, but it wasn't. It's kind of like going back to dynamic CRM and us having to call it XRM to do things that were not customer relationship management. Voice of the customer is another one, or customer voice is another one of these things. Hang on, I don't want to just do surveys.
No, customer voice makes me think that this is a tool for hearing from my customers in some form or fashion. And that's obviously not what Virgin was using it for at all.
No.
And frankly, that's a much narrower focus than what a form tool could do. This naming stuff started, at least in my memory, as far back as I remember the first time, and I'm sure there was more before that, maybe you remember, was SkyDrive.
Yeah.
Remember they launched SkyDrive?
Yeah.
And ended up getting in a patent or a trademark issue of that, and ended up having to rename it to OneDrive. And it seems like that kind of started the ball rolling towards just changing names willy-nilly. And it doesn't seem like there's any slowdown in sight on that one.
Yeah. It is crazy. And I mean, here's the other thing. I feel the way they just pull all the assets, right? That had the word Dataflex, they don't put up a sign and say, listen, sorry, folks. There's a trademark infringement, the issue at the moment. We've got a legal issue. Let's call it what it is. No, all of a sudden, all your URLs just get 404s on them as everyone massively panicked, takes them offline and go, oh, hope nobody notices. Like I saw a tweet saying, oh, look at that. They did it overnight, hoping nobody would notice, not realizing that they're in a 24-hour global marketplace and somewhere somebody's awake and they have noticed straight away.
Oh, I don't think they thought nobody would notice. I think they probably had an order from a judge to do it immediately. And they're not going to be in contempt of court. So I think that that Microsoft legal said, I don't care how you do it, shut them all down by the morning.
Yeah.
And they should have called me, because I think I still have that GIF of the guy, banging the hammer that says site under construction. The animated GIF. Remember you saw those on all the websites back in the day? The site under construction. They could have used that instead of 404 pages. Yeah, but now so now they're all 404s. So now nobody can get any information on the common data service or whatever the hell it's called.
No, you can. If you go up there, they've already started changing everything back to common data service.
Oh, have they?
Yeah.
Well, they should know how, because they just finished doing the search and replace to change it all to DataFlex, right?
I've heard that
a whole archive page, restore this page.
Some companies that have already, done that with all their training courses just got notified last night to find and replace again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'll be very curious to hear what name they come up with. I didn't mind the name DataFlex. It was fine. I mean, it was okay. I mean, it doesn't say anything like common data service did. It's not as descriptive a term, but okay, that means we could be a little more flexible with it. Plus, I think common data service, and then them promoting the idea that you could create hundreds of databases.
Yeah.
Kind of contrary to the idea of common. So I could see how there was some confusion there. DataFlex doesn't say anything. It could be anything. So I think they're probably going to come up with another name similar that is not descriptive. That's just, a name that they can stick on something.
Yeah.
But hopefully they do their homework this time. And I'm sure that whatever name they come up with, we're all going to ridicule.
Yeah. So did you see the internal name has now come out as well? Project something starting with O. Did you see that? This was the code name for it internally before they chose the word DataFlex. That's
it's on the tip of my tongue. You actually mentioned it in the pre-call, and I don't even remember it now.
Project. Well, someone's there. It is.
Yeah, Nick's let us.
Someone's put up that Toyota Oakdale is a thing. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, Project Oakdale. That's it. That's it, Nick.
Well, if Toyota had a car called the Oakdale, I don't think that would be a problem, because even from a trademark standpoint, you don't just, when you trademark a name, you don't own that name for everything. I mean, if you go to
no, but you own it for the categories that you take it out in.
Exactly.
Right. So you decide how broad or how narrow what your coverage is. Yeah.
Yep. So there's lots of people that have, like, for example, Rapid Start. There's a ton of people that have that, patented for or trademarked for a sprinkler system, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
That they've used that same term for. But in this case, DataFlex was registered for a low-code development software platform running on a cloud background or a cloud platform. I mean, what the fuck? It's the same damn thing. It's the same damn thing.
Crazy. You would have seen the tweet I put out yesterday about John Gravely, of course, something that you and I have known for a week now. Very sad that he has passed, and I think it's going to be a great shock to the broader community that he made a phenomenal name for himself, of course, with Click Dimensions particularly, and then for those older in the game, C360 Solutions was definitely a product. Back in the CRM4 days, it used to use a heap, right, to extend the product there. And it's such a shame that, he passed last week.
Yeah, he's going to be missed. I mean, the guy was at a very successful. I mean, he kind of had reached the pinnacle of what we'd all like to get to. I hate to think you're going to get there, and then the game over. It's just terrible to think that he didn't really get to reap the reward of his effort for very long.
Yeah.
You work for years and years and years to try and get to that place, and then you expect that you're gonna ride that success for a long time.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really very long.
I think it was only it would have been, is it a bit over 2 years or 3 years ago that he sold Click Dimensions?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, that's not even enough time to finish counting the money.
So it was, just incredible that this should come about. I've just had folks from Microsoft private message me this morning, absolutely in shock about it. People, particularly that been in the product team for many, many years or product marketing with Microsoft. It's definitely having quite a broad impact. People just in disbelief, even a lot of the ISV community out there, of course, are all in disbelief that, yeah, definitely gone way too soon.
Yes, I just noticed myself on the delayed video blowing vapor out from my vape. So I forgot that I told you I quit smoking. Quit smoking about a month ago, and I lasted about 2 weeks before I was going a little bit nuts. So somebody suggested one of these vapes, and I'm addicted to the stupid vape. So not as bad. At least it doesn't stink. So not as bad. Not as bad. But
Still
speaking of
this,
Gravely and ISV, and speaking to people inside of Microsoft, as you know, I wrote a couple of posts last week, kind of expressing a little bit of my displeasure with the ISV program in general, and maybe taking a few shots at Googs, since I know he's on his way out, retiring, and I wasn't really that impressed with the job that he did. I think that, I mean, I wrote it in the post, but basically I thought he came in a little heavy-handed, disbanded the ISV pack, and kind of put all of his energy in developing this rev share motion on top of what up to then and still is a pretty failed effort to help ISVs.
Yeah.
It kind of seemed like adding insult to injury, in my opinion, of, you've got a program that doesn't work, and ISVs that are the ones that are surviving in spite of the program that doesn't work, and your move is to now tax them for a program that doesn't work. I wasn't very happy with that. And I followed up with another post to the new guy who's taken over, which I think in the last episodes we said who we suspected, but I definitely got clarification. It's going to be Toby Bowers. I've known Toby for a long time, probably 5 or 6 years now. He actually ran the PAX for Dynamics. He's in the marketing organization, so he rolls up to Alyssa. Has been, and he's not leaving that organization. His role as running this ISV motion is going to be under the marketing organization.
Okay.
Which is good. So the result of those posts, I've ruffled a few feathers, as I thought I might. Googs was not happy with the way I characterized something, so I came back and kind of updated the post a little bit, because I'm not thrilled with the job the guy did for us.
Sorry, who was not happy? Who was not happy with what you did?
Googs.
Oh, so he contacted you directly on it, did he?
He did. Sent me an email about a particular sentence that he didn't like, where I think I said something like him proclaiming that it was wildly successful for ISVs.
So didn't you just go back and read listen to your podcast recordings and find out where he said it so you could just quote it?
So no, because it's too much effort. His position was that he's never said it was wildly successful for ISVs. He's always said something like, some things are going well and some things we still need to work on. So, I'll give the benefit of the doubt. It's funny because after I made the update and stuff and told him I'm still not, hearing from ISVs that are happy with the program, he referred me to the video in the Inspire session that they had created, where they had, I don't know, half a dozen or so of the big ISVs all singing the praises.
Yeah.
Well, I know 3/4 of those ISVs who all privately have told me they're not getting shit out of the program.
And this is the thing. We know how to market, right? We know what marketing is. We know that, like, I've been in Microsoft videos, many of them in multiple countries, been testimonials for them. And they're going, hey, we're going to fly a camera crew in, or we're going to do a video. Your name's going to get out around the world. You're going to look at all our brands saying we love your brand. Would you say this? Yeah, I'll say that.
Yep.
I mean, come on, all the showcasing on stage, etc. The amount of smoke and mirrors that go on in this game is off the Richter scale.
Yep, I agree. I think that marketing video, testimonial videos like that, case study videos, partner, support videos are for the most part bullshit.
Yeah.
And I know this one is, because I've talked to those partners separately, who've all said, yeah, this thing isn't working for us. And I'm like, well, got on a video and said that, you wouldn't survive without it. And yeah, well, a little what my dad used to call puffery.
Yeah. Yeah.
A little puffery there. So we'll see. But at any rate, I led to a phone call yesterday with a senior person on the ISV team, who I don't want to mention because they asked me not to.
Mhm.
Kind of an off the record conversation, so I don't want to get into a lot of the details of that, but it looks like I'm gonna have a regular cadence with these folks to try and, do what I can to tell them what I think.
Yep.
I have my own opinions, but I'm an ISV, and I think I probably think similar to a lot of most of the ISVs I talk to seem to agree. We're all
Mhm.
no secret sauce here. We're all kind of having the same challenges, so we all know what the challenges are. I think they over-indexed on the 20 percenters and the co-sell motion for the handful. So there's a small percentage of the largest ISVs that got 95% of the attention from the program, and that they need to fix that. They really need to fix it. I mean, frankly, there's a lot of ISVs that got no business being in the 20% co-sell anyway, because they're not a co-sell solution.
But this is the thing with echo chambers as well, right? Is that when you're talking to the 5% that you're paying off in a way through incentives, etc., to talk you up, they all of a sudden just start brown nosing, right? For one of a better term.
Microsoft has always been in a position of being kingmakers. We've known that, and I've been on both sides of that. I've been in a position before where they were spending a ton of money on my behalf and promoting the hell out of us, and other times when, they didn't even answer the phone.
Yeah.
So, and people out there thinking, oh no, they're being fair, and no, the lead distribution is equitable. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. They absolutely have their thumb on the scale to make things go in a direction they want them to go. So yeah, you go pluck out, a handful of your biggest ISVs and make an ISV program that works for them.
Yep.
They're all going to be on board with whatever you say, because
Absolutely.
why not? You're gonna send me a shit ton of. I mean, I had even planted that idea in Goog's head at the very first ISV pack that he showed up at and introduced himself before they disbanded. That was that when he was talking about revenue sharing and introducing that program, I said, before you do that, don't you think we should have some success first? Why don't you?
Yeah.
Why don't you take a handful of ISVs of different stripes, big ones, small ones, new ones, old ones, vertical ones, horizontal ones, get a mix and work with them, manufacture success if you need to. Manufacture success for that group, then come back, point at them, then introduce your revenue sharing program. Well, he kind of took part of that idea. He took a handful of the biggest ISVs to make Microsoft the most money. He ignored the new ones, he ignored the small ones, he ignored the horizontal ones. He went straight after the biggest vertical ISVs and did pretty much exactly that. Gave them the whole pie and left the crumbs for the folks behind.
Yeah.
But that meant there's an awful lot of people out there that weren't very happy with that program.
Yeah. I was talking with an ISV, well-established, been going about 4 years now, and growing in their success. And they have quickly pivoted away from being horizontal and going hard vertical. And the reason is they are just seeing too much risk from Microsoft also eroding their piece of the pie. We touched on last week, Sales Spark was a horizontal solution. And then what happened is that in no time at all, Microsoft announced in private preview that they were bringing out the same type of functionality we had built in our application. And so
the core of Sales Spark was
sequences, which has now come out as part of, accelerated selling, in that. And so,
I mean, I think that's one of the things I'd mentioned in that post was that it's pretty risky territory for ISVs right now with Microsoft.
Yeah.
I mean, you look back at some steps that they've made, like getting into PSA. Well, there were a bunch of project management ISVs that all just kind of got the shaft. Their marketing.
Yep.
I mean, Click Dimensions has survived in spite of their effort, but that's just because they, kind of bungled marketing somewhat. But didn't mean they didn't intend to go after that space. They just launched an accelerator. I was reading about for lease asset management, Well, that seems pretty damn vertical to me. I mean, I was talking recently to a company that is involved in a leasing solution, equipment
Yeah.
lease.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they don't seem to be afraid to go vertical. I don't know if they don't have the patience for the ISVs, but instead of building, and I think the whole accelerator program should be scrapped.
Yeah.
I think that I was suspicious of that from the day they launched it.
Yep.
The very first time I opened up that healthcare accelerator and I saw what they were calling sample apps,
Yeah.
I said, this is a problem. This is not where a platform company, this is not what a platform company should be building,
Exactly.
especially when they still have issues with the platform to get sorted out,
Yeah. Yeah.
of making all that stuff work. And here they've got this effort running out here, making these, what I'm considering vertical applications on these accelerators. And yeah, I never liked that idea. And I think that instead of investing in that, why don't you take the same amount of energy and invest in ISVs to build those kinds of solutions that you want and show that you really are a platform company that's dependent on ISVs and wants
Yeah.
ISVs to be successful? I see John is suggesting an idea of an alternative where you pay a fixed fee instead of revenue share. Well, the only people that would be willing to pay a fixed fee are those that would otherwise pay much larger revenue share, right? So, and I think I'd seen him suggest somewhere, maybe it was in one of the replies somewhere, about like $10,000 a year instead of 10% of my revenue.
Yeah.
Well, obviously the ISVs that would be opting for that are the ones that are potentially looking at paying tens of thousands of dollars of revenue share. So I don't see them necessarily doing that. I see them, and from the person I talked to the other day, there's some urgency that they know that they have to create value for the ISVs quickly.
Yeah. So, and I think that's the key thing there, is that I don't care how big the fee is.
Yeah.
If I'm making 10x the fee, right?
Yeah, don't
Awesome.
care.
Awesome. The
Sure.
problem is the fee is there and there is zero value, zero benefits. Mike, I've never seen Microsoft really be effective at marketing a partner or a third-party product that's not their own. Never seen it. I've seen them try to throw money in it, use external agencies, do call-ins, all this type of stuff. I've never seen it equate to serious revenue generation on the other side. The fact is, ISVs are crying out for a system that, one, manages licensing, IP protection for them, and a marketplace that is not spammable, gameable, allows their IP to be ripped off, something that drives real value. All these value components are not there for ISVs, yet there's a program that's saying, give us revenue as part. And so all people see is like, what the hell? This isn't successful by any stretch, because the value balance is wrong.
I think that kind of paraphrasing some of the conversation I had with this internal person was, when you look at the things that an ISV sees value in, and certainly things like, a universal licensing system we could plug in would be nice. But the number one thing they could do that I would see the most value in before anything else is send me leads. Put together a machine that sends me leads. And it starts with AppSource, and it starts with them spending money to promote AppSource, which they did an experiment a while back. They got some funding to go create some campaigns to see if it would drive traffic to AppSource, and it did drive some traffic to AppSource, and they stopped that campaign and said, okay, well, that's the end of that program. It was a pilot, apparently a successful pilot that didn't get picked up and continued, but they seem to be a little surprised when I was talking to them about, it doesn't start at Dynamics. It starts with somebody out there who may not even have Dynamics. They may have Salesforce. They may have nothing. It starts with them typing in the Google search bar, not Bing probably, but Google, that they're looking for a configure, price, quote solution.
Yeah.
They don't give a shit where, what, how. In the results of that search, you better pop up with the AppSource listings that are CPQ and drive people into that door. And then let's not waste their time with a bunch of featured irrelevant apps. You have no fucking idea what I even want I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
at this point, let's guide me through this process. And they talked about, well, we still feel like we need to have some way to feature new apps and feature apps. I said, no, you don't. If you filtered me through a funnel to where I'm looking for CPQ apps, for
yeah,
example, there's only a fucking handful of them. What's to feature? Alphabetical order? I mean, they'll all fit in one row on the page. There's no need for a featured apps gallery of any kind. Because if you've properly funneled me to what I'm looking for, we don't have 100 CPQ apps to feature any of them.
yeah, yeah.
They're all going to fit on a page.
Mm-hmm. They're going to
So
fit
they
in a
really
row.
need to, yeah. And if they get the lead gen right, then we're going to be a lot more forgiving on a lot of this other stuff.
Totally.
You know, I mean, definitely, I've been a big advocate for. They're in the unique position to give us a plug-in licensing mechanism.
Yep.
Because right now, you got 10 ISV solutions on your instance. You got 10 different licensing schemes in the background, all bumping into each other, and people having to pay 10 different people monthly,
Yeah.
bills to these different ISVs and Microsoft. They should be able to consolidate all that.
Do you remember back in the day the Microsoft BizSpark program?
Yeah.
Right. It encouraged startups, right, to come. They said, here's a bunch of stuff we give you and let's go play ball. I just looked up and quickly startups.microsoft.com.
Mhm.
And, we're B2B scale. And the first thing, their tagline is we're B2B startup scale. There's nothing about, there's PHP and blah, blah, blah. There's nothing about what's the value of getting into our startup program. There's nothing about, from the startup's point of view, of excitement. It's just like Microsoft has a nice program, but it used to be, man, you got a bunch of this, you got, support, you got a whole, and you wanted to build, particularly I remember it around Azure coming to market all those years ago. None of that's there, even for encouraging new people onto the platform. I know there are a heap of consultants out there, architects that have been in this game for a long time. They've got a business idea and they just don't know how to get it up and going. And of course, Microsoft does not provide any means, no internal user rights anymore for ISVs, where the BizSpark program used to give you internal user rights. If you, for the first, it was either 1, 2, or 3 years of your startup, you got a bunch of support technology provided by Microsoft. None of that's there anymore that I can see.
I've tried a few times to reach out to the startup group for different things out there. They you don't hear back from any of those people. I think they're 100% Azure focused.
Yep.
Build something on Azure. And we want to help you build something on Azure. Philips ought to get the BizApps group plugged into that startups group, because there's a missed opportunity there when they're pushing it all to Azure. But that's a whole focus. The problem we have with all this stuff is that Microsoft still lives and dies by scorecard, and they're a scorecard mentality, scorecard driven company. And I get that they're publicly traded. They got to watch their stock value, but their stock's gone up enough that they could afford to not have it go crazy all the time and maybe reinvest. But everything they look at, and that's as a company because of the stock market, down to a person in the company who's driven by a scorecard metric, influences everything they do. And when Googs is picking a handful of the top ISVs to go out there, well, that's because those are the ones that are going to make the most monetary impact the fastest.
Yeah.
And when you talk about some little startup who's got an idea, they don't have the patience. Microsoft does not have the patience. No one there has the patience to wait for some little startup with a great idea to get to generating revenue. They don't have the patience. They're continuously bouncing around looking for they would much rather take a big Salesforce ISV and convert them over to Azure. Let's spend all of our energy on that than helping 1,000 little startups, because they just don't have the patience. It's always going for the biggest pot of gold that they imagine they can see. And it's, I don't want to sound like I'm some sort of communist or something, but because I obviously get the motion, but that it's kind of contrary to trying to build a big ISV ecosystem is that you're driven by which ones are going to generate the most money the fastest.
Yeah,
And put
yeah.
pour all of your water on those. You know, you've got no water left for any of the other flowers. You poured them all on those, you know.
I see that Peter C there says, anyone heard from James Phillips? He seems to be MIA. So is he leaving? Well, I don't, sorry. So yeah, just so what's just run through my mind when I read that is one, you know, BizApps has grown the last 3 years because there are 3 well-known people and a 4th one at the helm, if you like, of this, which was Alyssa, James Phillips, head of engineering, Hayden Stafford, head of global sales, and Jeff, head of finance.
The money guy.
Now, you know, Hayden Stafford, of course, left within the last 2 months. He's gone. You know, 3 years is kind of that window where you see people either get promoted up or promoted out, you know, or get offered. So I've not heard anything about James Phillips in that respect. As far as I know, he's still there. Perhaps it's with COVID, he's not as in the public domain as such. I mean, the last big public event I saw him at was BizApp Summit. Did he do anything at the Ignite? I don't remember seeing anything.
The Inspire?
Inspire? I didn't see anything.
I don't recall, but I don't recall him doing anything in Inspire before necessarily either. You know, he's never been a big out front guy. You know, he's not the guy on the front lines out there. It's never kind of been his style. And he did get a promotion from corporate vice president to president.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he did get a promotion. So, yeah, I don't think he's necessarily, I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think he's going anywhere anytime just soon. But he strikes me as a guy who doesn't like taking punches.
Yeah.
And right now, you know, to stick your face out in the public with, you know, various issues with the platform and ISV stuff, you're kind of asking for punches in the face.
Yep.
So I think if I were him, I'd probably be, I'd be back behind the scenes just doing what I'm doing. I don't think I'd be sticking my face out right now either.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a lot of good things to say, but there's a lot of things that you know, people aren't happy with, and not new things that people haven't been happy with for a long time. But you know, you don't want to have your big announcements and all your wonderful stuff get overshadowed by people screaming at you, complaining about problems and stuff, you know?
Yeah. I see a lot of commentary running there about TikTok. Can you explain something to me? Because I don't get it. Perhaps it's an American thing or not. I don't know. But recently I saw President Trump being interviewed, and he was saying that, you know, that something about Microsoft looking at buying TikTok, and that if it does, you know, a big chunk of revenue is going to go to the US government. And I'm like, how does that work? Generally, you pay money to the company you're buying it off, not to the government, unless that company pays tax. But it's a Chinese company, so the tax is going to China if there's tax. It's not going to the US government. What is that? Or is that a bribe, or what is it? As in, do Microsoft got to pay the government off to buy?
He's probably referring to future tax revenue, but I think that you know, when you look at his problem with TikTok seemed to be that it's Chinese-based company, right? Yeah. And they've got a social site out there that is blown up. I mean, it's like 10 times the size of Twitter, which is amazing. And it's kind of scary to think that there's this company that's so much bigger than the biggest thing that we've got out there, and it's controlled by the Chinese. At least for Trump, that's a very scary thought.
Yeah.
So I think that's what kind of led him down his path. And I think he was the one who was recruiting Microsoft and the others to go buy that company and basically take it out of China, get that massive amount of data and information out of China. So yeah, I mean, I guess if Microsoft were to buy TikTok and move the whole thing over here, you know, and set it up on their servers and all that sort of, I mean, there's certainly going to be revenue involved for something. But I don't think it's necessarily a bribe, but But yeah, he definitely got very nervous about this out of nowhere social network that just exploded into such a big thing. And oh,
Yeah.
wait a minute, this is this is based in China.
So I'm surprised that only Microsoft's in play. I would have thought, AWS would be chasing it. I would have thought that
There were
Google
some
would be
others.
chasing it.
There were
Twitter,
some.
Facebook. Why wouldn't they all be after it?
Yeah, there were some others, and I don't know that Microsoft's going to conclude a deal either.
Yeah.
You know?
So it's what I think there's been a presidential order or something, 45 days to seal the deal, or or they're blocking it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Something like that.
Interesting ways to use presidential orders, I guess. Yeah,
Okay. Anything?
John's saying if Microsoft were paying a bucket load of money to Google search for lead generation with AppSource as the landing page, that might be of real value to ISVs. Well, they experimented with that. And they did see a significant uptick in traffic from their investment in Google search. The money that was allocated for that pilot ran out, and the pilot stopped. So they proved that they can drive traffic. I think one of the things I was told was that we proved we can drive traffic. What we couldn't prove is that we could convert it.
Right.
So it doesn't make sense to keep throwing money at driving eyeballs to AppSource if AppSource isn't converting. We need to make AppSource convert first, then go drive the eyeballs to it. So they know they had real
But nothing's been done on AppSource for over at least 2 years that I can see, or even its inception, apart from, as I say, one checkbox was put in for the word PowerApps. And then a space was added to the word Power Space Apps. I've not seen any other cosmetic behind the scenes or anything done.
I think the biggest thing that happened to AppSource in the last year, which is actually, it's been a year since ISV Connect. It was launched at Inspire.
That's right. That's right.
The biggest thing that happened really was clearing out a lot of junk. They did manage to finally accomplish that. I don't understand why that took so long. I could have done it in a weekend. But it took them months and months and months and months of giving ISVs every chance in the world to update their solutions before they finally pulled. But they did finally get through that process of getting them all pulled, and now they're all having to recertify every 6 months to stay in there, which is a good thing, because if there's nothing in AppSource but garbage, then AppSource is never going to get anywhere. So I had to fix that first.
Something you said the other day was around the fox guarding the hen house in regards to AppSource. Which I thought was a very apt comment around, what's the third-party company that they've contracted out to validate every ISV solution?
HCL.
HCL.
Yeah, and I'm sure somebody had mentioned something about there being NDAs and all that stuff in place, but buddies of buddies, buddies of buddies, right?
I saw this over a beer. This is gonna go big. Chinese whispers. Chinese walls, they're all that, that's it's been industrial espionage is a thing, right?
Oh, sure. And it's amazing to me that Microsoft contracts out so much stuff when they have so many people. I mean, what do they got? 100,000 employees. So the business apps group is what, 6, 7, 8,000 now, and they're still contracting out huge hunks of services, just contracting this stuff out. Contracted out support, contracted out development, contracted out certification, contracting, marketing program, all the stuff contracted. I said, what the fuck are these people doing that they hired? I don't understand what they're doing.
Yeah.
I don't understand what 6,000 or 7,000 staff is accomplishing.
In biz apps.
In biz apps, you would think with that number of bodies thrown at things, we've seen lots of new products launch and lots of things, but they must have 1,000 people on the renaming team.
Well, what's the latest figures you've heard about how big a business it is now to Microsoft?
I haven't heard any figures in a while.
But
they don't break it out.
Yeah, well, around Inspire, there was a bunch of tweets, because the earnings happened around that, the quarterly earnings reports came out and stuff. I heard a number that it's around a $3 billion business now.
Well, that's pretty good business. I think that, part of one way to grow your business group internally is to take over other products within the business.
Mm-hmm.
Forms, Microsoft Forms didn't start out as a biz app. That was over in the Office 365 turf.
Yeah.
We got about 12 different ways to create a list in Microsoft Teams, none of which have anything to do with the business apps group, but we're going to come up with a new product here for building apps in Teams that is part of the business apps group. So it almost feels like there must be some internal competition for things as well. We got that Microsoft Lists, which is not part of our development stack at all. Ryan Jones had said that doesn't have anything to do, that's a whole different stack. I don't know who owns that, but clearly what was going to be called DataFlex for Teams is at a rudimentary level going to be something similar. And even if they're completely different stacks, completely different technologies, the end user is thinking, I got to build a fucking list. What am I going to use? And he's got 6 different choices of a Microsoft product to build a fucking list in Teams.
Yeah.
And these are all these products are from different product groups inside of Microsoft. So you got to figure there's some internal competition over, I want Teams people to build their list on my platform,
Yeah. So
but if
I don't know, as in
beat them, join
you
them,
talk
right?
about internal competition. Have you ever seen this or seen as a book? Hang on, I'll just try and get it. There you go, focused in.
Fiefdom syndrome.
Right.
I've not seen that, but I can imagine what that's about.
Yeah, and it says there the turf battles that undermine careers and companies and how to overcome them. Now, the dude that wrote it, it says the former god of Microsoft, the guy Robert J. Hebrold. I'm like, that's interesting. I mean, it's got me interested in reading it. And you just talked about these software battles, internally. Yeah, that might be an interesting read.
It was part of this whole One Microsoft, right? That they launched a couple of years ago. This One Microsoft.
It wasn't. It was. Sorry, just 1 second. I said Robert Microsoft God. It was COO. It's just the printing was fudged.
Oh.
The Microsoft COO. There you go. Carry on.
But I think that this whole idea of One Microsoft was supposed to knock down some of those walls because they were a very compartmentalized organization, and I think there were lots of turf battles going on. And on the surface, people like Alyssa Taylor and James Phillips would talk about, One Microsoft, and Hayden, One Microsoft. They're all preaching the One Microsoft, but at the end of the day, again, you're scorecard driven.
Yeah.
And I get nothing from your success. You get nothing from mine. So I'm sorry, we're not on the same team. Maybe we're under the same umbrella company, but at the end of the day, my paycheck is influenced by my doing better than you do.
Yeah.
In this organization. So, Ken, do we think Satch is aware of what stuff? The renaming and all the cluster stuff? Well, I'm sure he's got to be, because
I think someone would keep him in the loop, right? Someone would be like, "Oh, this is blowing up. Whoops,"
Yeah, I mean, it's too public a thing out there to be able to hide from the CEO. And like I said before, it's fucking embarrassing. I mean, if I'm Satya, I don't know what kind of guy he is, but I'd be livid about this whole situation. I mean, somebody's head's got to roll over this thing, because that's just embarrassing to the organization. Unless BizApps at a $3 billion business is still just a piece of gum on their shoe. I don't know.
I wouldn't have thought so at $3 billion.
You wouldn't think so. And listen to him talking, at Inspire events in the past about, it's funny because we would all sit back and smile and almost applaud when he'd even mention the word dynamics, because prior to that, it was never mentioned. It was never even brought up. I don't think Ballmer ever even said the word, dynamics. It wasn't until Nadella, and it wasn't for a while after he took over, that he started bringing up business applications occasionally in conversation. We were all thinking, oh man, we're finally going to get on the map, but I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting times.
We live inside our bubble, right?
Huh?
We live inside our bubbles, right?
Yeah, well, even more so these days with COVID and all. It's
I mean, our bubbles of our business. I mean,
I
I've,
know, I
I've,
know.
I know Azure is doing well anecdotally, but I don't do Azure. I don't focus on Azure. I mean, I'm
Mm,
sure the guys
mm, mm.
doing Azure could give a shit about what we're doing over here. You got the modern business or modern applications group, right? On the Microsoft 365. They've been trying to get, I mean, that's a huge part of the organization, both internal and partners, that they've been trying to get to look at biz apps
Yeah,
for years, and still don't. You know, they still don't pay attention. They're too focused on what they're doing, and I'm not paying any attention to what they're doing.
yeah,
So we all kind of got our own bubbles, and that's external. You know, it's the same thing internal. But
yeah.
James Phillips isn't getting up every morning and wondering what the Office team's doing, you know, or what the Azure team's doing.
Wow, that's so Nick saying that someone, is that a recent comment, Nick, that someone said that? I mean, that's definitely been, from when I first became an MVP, that was definitely a common thing talked about. But is that still the case within Microsoft? Was that a recent comment you heard that from, Nick? It seems yeah, a while back. Interesting. Interesting.
Well, if it was a rounding error a while back, Azure's continued to grow. Even if Dynamics has also grown, it's probably still a rounding error. You know, I think that they don't break out the numbers, so we don't know.
Yeah.
But there's
So
100,000 people in the organization. What did it say? About 6 or 7 of them on biz apps.
yeah.
Uh, there's a shit ton of them over there on the Azure team.
So in other news, Australia next week was the Australia Community Summit, part of
Canceled.
DCI, cancelled.
Canceled.
And that was a virtual event was cancelled.
Yeah.
And
Why would you cancel a virtual event? Not enough signups.
listen, I think people are starting to get virtual fatigue of events.
Yeah, I am. I mean, I
Right?
watched about 2 sessions from Inspire
Yeah.
recording. I just went and
Yeah.
watched a couple of recordings. It's just, you know what? It's not just fatigue, but there's no pomp and circumstance of the virtual event. I
No.
mean, I don't
No.
have to, I get on a plane, fly somewhere, stay in a hotel, hang out with a bunch of, it's an event. And
Yeah.
then I'm going to sessions because I'm at an event, but virtual, hell, I got work to do.
Yeah.
I got a virtual thing on one monitor, and I got actually paying work on another. Or I'm going to go ride my motorcycle for a while because it's right here. It's just not. I don't know about virtual.
Yeah. I mean, a couple of comments there about the fees, etc. Let's put all that aside. There are so many virtual events on now. It's like, well, I've been asked to speak at multiple and I've declined all of them. Why would I speak at a virtual event when I can, if I want to say something, I will do a
Do it
YouTube
here.
video and put it out there, right?
Or do it here on a Tuesday.
Do it, do a topic on something. Is in that I just don't see all. As I say, I think we've hit a barrier where people have got enough events on. Every man and his dog is now running a new virtual event, and it's becoming noise.
I think I'm actually signed up for a virtual event where Julie's doing the
Mm-hmm.
XRM virtual. They're doing an ISV showcase, and I'm going to do a half hour on our stuff there.
Mm-hmm.
And but I think that when you take out the live event and the logistics of putting together a live event and turn it into something virtual where there's literally no logistics. I mean, like you say, anybody that's listening to this show can create their own virtual event.
Mm-hmm.
It'd probably take them a couple of hours and go try and promote it out there. So a lot of the value of what these live event producers, it's just not there. I mean, they're not producing anything you can produce yourself.
Yeah.
Other than potentially, supposedly bringing in an audience that you might not be able to get on your own.
Yeah. Well, you need to go to TikTok to do that then.
Exactly. There you go. But
There's
I mean,
an audience that you probably haven't tapped into yet.
If you're a person out there with some expertise in, I don't know, Power Virtual Agents or something like that, you could certainly create your own event for yourself, talking about it, a webinar or something like that. But the theoretically, if a big group is putting this thing on, they're going to drive eyeballs to your event that you wouldn't be able to get.
Yeah.
I guess if they're canceling events, they must not have been driving enough eyeballs. I mean, the only reason I can imagine to cancel a virtual event would be that the registrations weren't there.
But here's the thing: is that virtual events can run and everybody can attend, right? So, what new content are you going to get when the same speaker was at the other virtual event talking on the same topic?
Yeah, and also, what are the costs involved? I mean, why? I mean, you would think that. I mean, okay, maybe they didn't get enough attendance. Maybe it wasn't going to be as profitable. But I mean, what's the cost? I mean, they pull the plug on the event. What have they saved? Guys here talking on the chat here about expensive sponsorships and expensive registration for these virtual events and stuff like that. Well,
that's just taking reality to kick in, right? Reality is going to kick in, and nobody's going to be paying any of that within 12 months. And they're going to realize that, well, you can't put these type of price tags and expect anybody to buy in these days. That was that was a pre-COVID world.
Another thing that could be happening, DCI got bought by private equity, right? Or a big investment from private equity private equity, they're here to grow something and sell it for more money. That's their whole purpose in life is to buy something, grow it, sell it for more, and move on.
And we know that happened last year, right? $11 million was the money that went in. It was when we were in, where were we at the time? We were in Orlando, right? When that news came out, which is coming up 12 months ago.
But private equity also is very quick to dump something that they don't see they're going to get their return on.
Yeah.
They don't like stick it out for the long haul, hoping that a dog is going to turn around. Once they see something turn into a dog, they're quick to dump it and do something else.
Yeah.
It could be that the money behind DCI is looking at the landscape saying, we don't have a way up from here, so just stop.
Yeah.
Just stop and either stop everything or stop and let's regroup.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what led to the summit being canceled, is just, this ain't working, stop it. And let's either figure something else out or shut the whole fucking thing down. Because private equity, I mean, they don't give a shit. They're gonna grow this thing and sell it, or, get out.
Are you saying my Granite Award that I showed last week is a collector's item now? It's a one-off.
It may well be. It may be one of the last Granite Awards, or the last Granite Award given. Yes.
Although I see your All-Star just went up for nomination. People can vote on their All-Star. I think I saw Jonas in that list. Who else was in that list that we know?
There you go. Nick got him one too. So they're just tossing around like candy now. Hell, if Nick got one, anybody can get one.
Just kidding,
Nick. Just kidding, Nick.
Nick got All-Star last year. That was audience vote. Well done, Nick.
Nick's made the investment over the years, I think, in DCI, as have you. I never really did invest much energy into it, but that's why where's mine, because I never invested much energy. But I know some folks have, and I think that I kind of sit back from the sidelines looking at what's going on, going, that's too bad. But there's a lot of people that are genuinely disappointed, frustrated, hurt, mad that it invested, like yourself, Nick, so much into that organization, and to have it potentially fail. It's a shame, because I think a lot of it is COVID related, but they didn't move fast enough at the time, and they I'm telling you, private equity in the background saying, we ain't giving no fucking refunds. Yeah, there's the guys that are, they don't care. We ain't giving no refunds.
Totally. They don't have a relationship with any of the people or anything like that. Totally different world.
Yeah.
Well, dude, we've wasted another hour. Time for me to leave the city before I get roadblocked and can't get home. And let's see what happens.
Hoping to talk to the new leader of ISV the next week.
Yeah.
Possibly before the next episode, so I might have some more to report there. But yes, I agree, Nick. I agree. All right, man. Well, hopefully you can get out of there. We shall see you next week.
That's the plan. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Bye-bye.